Welcome to Curate Your Career, a museum career podcast about staying, leaving, and everything in between. I'm Elin Philby, museum educator turned career coach.
And I'm Alli, career coach specifically for museum professionals. And we're here to talk about all the messy, exciting, and sometimes confusing parts of working in museums.
Each week, we'll share stories, real advice, and quick wins to help you figure out your next move, whether that's staying, leaving, or just making your current job work better for you.
So let's dive in, because if there's one thing museum professionals are great at, it's overthinking. We're here to help you think smarter, not spiral. So take a breath and let's get started.
I always want to start these with a song. I think that's just how my brain works. And this one is what?
I was like, nothing can beat the mailbag song. So you're on the way up from there.
I mean, it's Rihanna, so I don't know.
Oh, I like this.
Museum better have my money.
There you go. That's deleted.
That's deleted. There we go. Today, we are talking about negotiations. You got the offer. Congratulations. But now, the scary part, or after this episode, it won't be so scary. But the big scary part for most people, negotiations.
Yes. And I know many of you out there have accepted offers without negotiating, have left money on the table or other benefits, as you're going to learn. And this is something that Elin and I have experienced firsthand, both for our clients and also for ourselves throughout our career. So we are so excited to talk about this.
Mm-hmm. And especially, yes, for people who identify as female or underrepresented groups, this is extra, super, especially important because salary gaps start early in our career. And if we are not able to set ourselves up for success in our negotiations, that salary gap just continues to widen. So
I think also it raises the bar for the entire field. Even in your little organization or other museum that you're working in, all of us pushing and advocating for higher pay, dollar by dollar, helps the field.
I love it. So today we're going to walk through strategies, mindset shifts, and actionable tips so you can feel confident advocating for yourself.
Let's dive in.
Yay!
All right, Elin, I actually am going to have you share an example of when you perhaps should have negotiated and didn't.
Yes. So I could tell you an unsuccessful story because in my last two full-time jobs were really the only place I could negotiate because all the other ones I was like a visitor services role, which, retrospectively I could have advocated for that and I should have, but or like contract roles where it's like, this is what it is. And I was a new grad and I was desperate. So I can talk about a time when I was unsuccessful. And as my dad always says, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So
even I think with fundraising and museums.
Yes,
so
yes.
Absolutely.
yeah. So my first job outside of museums, I asked for a higher salary. I asked for $1,000 extra to compensate for the fact that I would now have to pay for parking. Because I worked on campus, my old job, I did not have to pay for parking. This job, I would have to pay for parking.
So expensive on a campus.
Yes. Well, in Madison is an isthmus. So we have very little land available to us for things like parking.
Learn something new. Wow.
Yeah. Parking's at a premium and they make you pay for it at University of Wisconsin. Yeah. So I asked for the extra $1,000 to pay for parking to offset that reduction because it would be a reduction in salary, right? If I was going to
Sure.
pay for parking because the salary was the same as what I was making before. And they said no. I'm glad I asked. I know. And like my supervisor at the time was really nice about it. She was awesome. She said no. So I actually ended up taking the bus, which was fine and it worked. But I will say that it was my first job outside of museums. And even though I didn't get that initial salary increase, I got a promotion within like the first 6 months of being there.
Okay.
And that came with a very significant salary increase. I ended up giving it back, but that's a story for another day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I took the promotion as I came back from maternity leave. That was a really horrible idea. So I gave it back. But yeah, so I got a promotion within the first 6 months of working there. And then we also had tons of professional development.
Nice.
Yeah, so it did offset, and I'm glad I asked. So what about you?
So I was in grad school. I was interning at not a historic site. I was interning at a museum, and I was getting increased responsibility and they had an opening for a part time position. And this is a little unethical. So if this happens to you, I was just so green. And I was also so eager to work in a museum that I didn't really notice the red flag until I was in the middle of the meeting. But essentially, I got called into the president and CEO's office with another staff member, not HR, and they're basically like, we want to offer you this part time position and are asking you what you would like to make. And this would caught me off guard. So I didn't even have a chance to like even know what to ask for. And I should have said, let me consider this. Afterwards, you think of all the things. And so instead, I just blurted out a number that was low. And this is in DC. Because I was like, I don't want them to say no to me, which is these are all common things that we think about
Mhm.
when going
Mhm.
to negotiate and blurted out a number very low. Like I was making peanuts essentially. And I just remember after that, I was like, why did I ask for that? And after that, I was like, no way, no way. That like vowing to never let that happen to me again. And so I always tell people, always negotiate, always ask myself. Every job after that, I made sure that I was not letting myself get taken advantage of and going from there. So
Shady as hell.
yeah, it was a problematic organization. And so if there is someone else in the room with you that is not HR, that is not good
Yeah.
practice.
And yeah, you're allowed to say, let me think about that. I would like to run some numbers and I can get back to you.
Mhm.
Because also, too, and I'm seeing this more, I think, I guess, less now in applications, but sometimes places will say, what are your salary requirements? And I always tell people to put up for negotiation.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, right. But recently, I've seen some that has to be a numerical
I
value.
know. I was just going to say that. It's so shady. I hate that so much.
So shady. So we'll talk a little bit today about like how to run comps and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. Can I share another example of
Yes.
an unsuccessful negotiation? Because this is another scenario that I think I just thought about now. This just triggered it. So I
Mhm.
was in the process of leaving a position and I was either going to accept this job offer or I was like, let me see. Like, this is another way you can kind of negotiate. We're not going to get into this as much. We're going to just talk about more like traditional negotiations. But I had another job offer and they also really wanted me to stay there. And for me, this was right before the pandemic. I was like, I really want some workplace flexibility. And so that was like one of the bigger things. Money was a little bit of a factor, but it really was like I would like to work from home at least like one day because I was commuting in and
Mhm.
I wasn't able to get as much work done in the office. They said no. So sometimes you get your answer that way. I was like, okay, if you're not
Mhm.
even willing to meet me on this one thing, that really should not be a factor. Then I kind of had my answer for where to go.
Mhm.
The ironic thing is then the pandemic happened months later and everyone was work from home. But I think I was already on my way out. But anyway,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
there's other ways that you can kind of negotiate. Even sort of quote unquote unsuccessful negotiations can give you some feedback. So anyway, let's talk about a successful time. I really want to hear when Elin did the thing,
Yes, I
got
did
that
the thing.
money.
Yes. So it was my first job out of DC, and it was actually my first full-time museum job. No, that's a lie. It was my second, but like my first like real one. And I got my offer and it was quite a bit lower than I was anticipating. And I said, okay, based on my experience and my degree, and I gave my list of reasons I was hoping for X. And the director, who has become a really good friend of mine, he was saying, well, we have this budgeted for this year. So I cannot go over that number for now. I can offer you a lot of like flexibility and professional development and opportunities for growth in this year, but we can set up a strategy or a benchmark for if you hit certain goals next fiscal year, we can give you a 10% raise. So that worked out great. And that's also something that I advocate for people on too, is because sometimes budgets are set. So that is a future negotiation, especially if you feel like you can really succeed in the role, to set these benchmarks, set these goals so that you can advocate for a higher raise in the next fiscal year when they can build it into the budget.
My gosh, such a great example. And
Mhm.
I think if you're getting anything from just some of our conversations, there's so much nuance and there's so
Mhm.
many, like, I think we have an idea of what a negotiation is. We're going to dispel a little bit of that, but also it doesn't look the same. And there's so many different ways to approach it. So that's great. Oh man, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that little piece.
Do you have a successful one?
Yes. The only one I could remember, I know that obviously from my, this core origin story of alien negotiations. Never again. I could not like really remember like total amounts and things, but I do remember my last job in a museum. I definitely went in and asked for somewhere in the range. I usually always ask for like around within like $5,000. And it was one that we had to like go back and forth once or twice. And they certainly like met me in the middle. Um, and they were fine with it. It wasn't a scary thing.
Uh-huh.
They, had to go back to the board. They took it under consideration. So it wasn't an immediate no. And, came back with like a middle amount and actually like got board members to like contribute to like bring out this is a small museum. So it's not a large museum. This is a small museums making things happen. Um, because they were like, we really want you part of this organization. We're gonna work something out. So, but then this organization, like, I never worked in a museum. They give bonuses at the end of the year.
What?
Yeah, yeah, wild. So, like, they definitely like not like significant, but like it's. I mean, any doubt
Literally never heard of that.
they were a very thoughtful organization. So pretty much, if you did your work, could prove that like, hey, you significantly like impacted the organization, which they all knew.
Uh-huh.
The board members would pull together and they would help give you a bonus at the end of the year just to like show that they appreciated you. So something to consider
Amazing.
if you're an
Yeah.
organization. We don't want pizza parties. Money, a bonus is great.
Bonus would be
So
awesome.
yes. So this place, they're great. All right. So anyway, let's dig in. Let's give you guys some real advice, some actual tips.
Yes.
And this could be you.
Yes. Yes. And I want to address what I think is everybody's biggest fear.
I think I know what this is.
Can an organization rescind a job offer if you negotiate? A lot of times people do not want to negotiate because they are afraid the offer will become revoked, which I understand, right? Like, especially in the museum field, you're like, it feels very high stakes. Jobs are hard to come by, especially good ones. So it's like, well, I just got to take it. So, can an organization revoke a job offer? The short answer is yes. But, don't freak out.
Don't be spiraling.
Don't spiral, right? That's what museum pros are good at, spiraling. Don't freak out because it is extremely rare, very rare, especially if you're a competitive candidate.
I was trying to think of an example. I've literally, in the time I've worked at places, talked to colleagues in the fields, done career coaching, never have heard of a rescinded offer. I've heard of retracted offers from the candidate, but not in the case of the organization in regards to a negotiation.
Yes. And if they do that, which again, very rare, very, very rare, that is a huge red flag. And you're probably dodging a bullet because organizations that do stuff like that are usually not well managed, toxic work culture, not worth working for. Respectful negotiations is a part of the hiring process. It is expected. It is normal. This conversation is going to further normalize it. So don't worry. And if it does happen, it's probably a blessing in disguise, and these are things we'll talk about more as we go on, but protecting yourself from that happening by negotiating tactfully and respectfully. Frame everything around your value, around why you're such a great candidate, about what you can do for the organization, not ultimatums. We're not playing hardball here, right? And I think that's like a lot of people think negotiations is like very used car salesy, not to disparage used car salesmen, but they think a lot, it's like very bro culture, right? Of negotiation. It's like, oh, I'm Wolf of Wall Street, whatever. But there are ways to do this respectfully that honor you and your values and also bring your value and your worth to bear. So just making sure that you do have an offer letter, have everything in writing before you accept. And you don't always also, like Allie talked about her story about getting pulled into an office, like try to avoid situations where you feel put on the spot. You can
Yes.
always say, I need some time to think about this. Let me get back to you. Or most job offers are given via email these days. Like you may get a phone call to say, like, we'd like to offer you the job. We're going to email you your package, da da da. So you can negotiate on email if doing it over the phone or in person is scary, which is, I think, a totally normal thing now. So,
Yeah, you don't have to worry. Coach a lot of clients through just email negotiations.
yep,
That's fine.
yep. The potential payoff of higher salary, PTO, flexibility. outweighs the potentials of not negotiating at all.
Yes. I think we got everyone's hopefully number one fear
Yes.
on the table. Maybe you dispelled it a little bit. We're gonna work on continuing to dispel it. And I would just want to share some mindset shifts when it comes to negotiations because it's normal. This is places like if they're, a place that is, not all red flags, they should know that's part of the process and plan for it. So first and foremost, that is just a normal part of hiring culture. And I think too, even if let's say they don't meet you at the very least, let's say like at the very least you negotiate and they can't meet you. Where are you? We're going to walk you through this, but at the very least, you're advocating for yourself, and that has to feel good in a field where you feel like a lot of times it's hard to advocate, and especially in a job search process where there's definitely a power dynamic. And speaking again towards being pulled into a room, even the fact of when places are asking for what's your salary preference, there's a power dynamic in play when places do this. So keep this in mind. If you do this as an organization,
Don't.
please don't. Please don't. You're putting candidates in a really tough power dynamic situation. But at the very least, advocating for yourself has got to feel good. So regardless of the outcome. So just something to think about. And I just like to think you're coming to a mutual agreement. So this goes back to like the respectful negotiations. So just think of it as you're both working together versus a one-sided, or maybe where that ick feeling comes from of asking for something, or a field where you feel like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to ask for too much. We're all very conscious, yes, of how we feel about museum culture and, not speaking up or asking for things, but like, it's okay. Please do that. And just have the mind that we're going to mutually come together to an agreement, same for the place that you are negotiating with. And at the very least, as someone who has been part of hiring processes, and when you get to that point of where you have that candidate that you are so excited to hire and you send them the offer letter, you like if you've not been part of this situation, but if you have, right, you know how that feels and how excited you are to bring that team member on. You are 9 times out of 10, I would say, or 10 times out of 10, like willing to try and come to an agreement to bring them on. The hiring process takes, as we know, a long time. So you really don't want to lose that candidate either. There is a little bit of a power play too, where the place has sort of done some investments into bringing you on as a candidate. So just know on the opposite end, there is this other side where the places are excited to bring you on. They don't want to lose you as a candidate and theoretically should be willing to work with you and meet you somewhere. So
Yeah.
just some things to think about and to put yourself in the mindset.
Like, it's not like this big bad person sitting on the other side of the table. They want you to be happy. They want you to be successful. And negotiations is a way to make sure that everybody feels aligned. So once you've gotten an offer and you are ready to negotiate, thinking about what is important to you and what do you want? Is it a salary? Is it flexibility? Is it professional development? Is it PTO? Create a list for yourself of what are the top priorities. What is your desired salary range? What is the lowest that you can actually take? Because at a certain point, you're losing money working for less than a certain amount, right? So setting those goals for yourself. Part of that, too, if you're not really sure where to go, is to research salary ranges for your role or your location. So you can look on places like Glassdoor, PayScale. Professional networks have some resources about this. ONET, which is run by the government, has resources. You can even ask ChatGPT to run you comps.
I would even say most of you, if you've been job searching and you have your tracker of positions you applied for, you probably
Mhm.
already have that data already on hand or someone in your brain. So
Right, right,
at the very
right.
least,
Yes. Because if you're applying for program manager jobs in Chicago, you know about the range of what those are will pay. So knowing what the range is and then preparing a list of achievements and skills that justify your ask. So you need to have a reason and evidence to support the dollar amount that you're asking for. Is it your past experience? Is it your degree? Is it that because of your skill set, the organization is going to save money on not having to train somebody in this program, right? Like, I already know past perfect. You don't have to train me on that. That's going to save you money, right? So, know the reasons why you're asking for this money.
I will add one thing that I think people forget about as a value we bring, which is connections.
Mm.
So depending on, let's say maybe you're in an area where you've built up like let's say clientele, but like partnerships and you are working in like a similar location in the area. Like that is definitely a value to bring. Like I come with all these partnerships and people that I have built relationships with. So anyway, just wanted to throw that
Yes.
in that there is I think a huge value assigned to that that people forget about.
Right? It's that social currency. So yeah, you can't just say, I want more money. You need to say why. So think about the why, think about your reasoning, and then that will help you to solidify that number.
Absolutely. And I think this is also good just to have on hand even before you get to the negotiation
Mm,
process. So this is something I think you agree to, Elin, that like this is something that you should just already have on hand because sometimes, like, as you know, during the application process, they might ask you, hey, what's your ideal salary range? Also, it will help eliminate some jobs if you're like, hey, this is the lowest I'm willing to take.
mhm.
So these are just things that you should have on hand um, to think about in terms of negotiations.
Okay, so almost everything is up for negotiation. And I think a lot of times when people hear negotiation, they think just base salary. That is part of it, right? The base salary could be something that you negotiate. There's also the option to increase that base salary after a 6 month or a 1 year probationary period. Similar, like I talked about at the beginning of the episode, you clearly define terms of success, goals, metrics written down, write those down, and then once you've hit those, then you can negotiate for the salary increase, what the increase will be also. There's also things like signing bonuses, relocation costs. There are other ways that money can come into the picture besides just your base salary.
Yes. I think those are all. I know usually that is money is the top of people's lists,
Hmm.
but you might find based on your values that there's some other things that you can ask for. And there is still like monetary value assigned to them. I think we just forget it because there's not a dollar sign, but
Hmm.
there's definitely like everything has a value to it. So some things to think about might be around your work schedule. And this might be a top priority for some people, right? So for me, like you learned in that one job, I really wanted some hybrid work schedule. And that was like one of the top list things. So think about if that's something that you want, maybe some work from home time, put that on your list. Maybe you want to be remote during the holidays, just have some general flexibility. Maybe you want to negotiate your start time, or if you have a vacation that's falling within when you start. Some places should be pretty reasonable, but sometimes, yeah, you might have to negotiate that if that's going to be something that's going to kind of trip up the start time of the beginnings of your job, paid time off, things like that. So definitely your schedule and how you work can factor into negotiations as well.
Yeah. And that is a pretty indicative of the culture of places, right? And like how they handle those kinds of things. But again, it's generally a low to no cost way for the organization to make you happy. So, and then beyond scheduling and paid time off and money, there are some other more tangible things that you can think about asking for. One is professional development budget. Is there specialized training you want to do? Is it conferences, workshops, books, stuff like that? Can you ask for that?
Yeah, or ask for an increase, right? If there's a
Mhm.
conference you really want to go to, for example, or a class you really want to take, again, it benefits the organization to have a better professional.
Mhm.
Office equipment. I always forget this one. So I'm really
Yes.
glad that you also noted this because, yeah, maybe you're a Mac user and the office is all PCs, or there's just something that maybe a company phone. I think about this a lot in
Mhm.
museums as someone who ran social media. I was like, wow, it would be great if like my phone could be covered because I was using my phone and its
Mhm.
data and all that stuff. So think about what equipment that you might need in the nature of your work. And again, they can, there's a sale, there's ways that they can save money again on offering to pay for some of these things.
Yeah. And I've been at places where you have to provide your own laptops and use your own phone and things like that. I'd love if that wasn't the norm. So just something to make sure that you, especially like Ali said, like if you're doing social media or using your computer a lot, is that something that they are going to provide for you? Or is it something that you are expected to provide for yourself?
Yeah. That's just something, hey, just good to know in general,
Yeah. Yep.
even not
Yep.
part of the negotiation. And then, of course, healthcare is always a factor if it's a place that does not offer it. So if they can't offer you full healthcare, maybe they can offer you some financial money. I know that when I was first starting off my career working in small museums, they did not cover healthcare, but were able to give me a stipend towards it, which helped. Then there are other ones where I did have to pay for my healthcare.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and along with that, maybe some sort of retirement or, 401k, IRA, because
My
yeah,
last job with the
that's
bonuses did offer that too.
they
And they
did?
matched. And they matched up to
Nice.
3%, I believe.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Again, small museum, full time staff of two. our small museum can do it, your organization can figure out a way to do it too and make your staff feel valued. Why I stayed there 5 years.
Right? Yeah. Well, and honestly, too, like working with career changers, one of the biggest things when I ask people what their wish list is for their first non museum job, it's healthcare and retirement. It's like,
Something
all
to
right,
think about
guys.
employers.
Yes. Right. Like Ellie said, if her 2-person small museum can figure it out, you too can figure it out.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It
Right.
just like makes me like a collective sigh for this field
Mhm,
that I just want
mhm.
to be better so much.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about some tactics during negotiation. So, some common mistakes to avoid: apologizing. Don't apologize for asking for your worth.
Nothing to apologize for.
Nothing to apologize for. You don't need to say I'm sorry to ask, but stand firm. Even if you need to type out I'm sorry and then delete it, like I'd rather you do that.
Get the I'm sorry's out.
Yes. Yes. There's nothing to apologize for. Other things to avoid: being vague. You want to make a direct, concrete ask or counteroffer. And then not backing up your offer with facts, right? So, along with being vague, you want to give reasons, you want to give facts, you want to give proof of why you are asking for this higher salary. So, again, my social capital, my connections in the area, my degree, my years of experience, my previous training in X, which will save you from having to spend money on training, those kinds of things. And then don't say yes right away. I saw a TikTok the other day with a recruiter. No, she's an HR manager. And she said, if you immediately accept an offer, I've already lost respect for you. And I was like, damn, okay. Like
Yeah.
you should negotiate. Yep.
And you should just take a day to think. It's okay.
Yes.
They're not going to rescind in a day.
Mm-mm.
Things going to go away. It's totally normal to ask to take a day or two or a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take too long.
Mm-hmm.
Places don't
Mm-hmm.
love that, but
Mm-hmm.
a day or two is fine.
Yeah. And one other common thing I think to avoid is, so say they give you an offer of 50 and you are hoping for 55. My recommendation would be to ask for 60 so that 55 feels like a deal for them. How do you feel about that?
I was going to mention something like this, so you read my mind.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times it's like asking for grant money, right? You
Mhm.
always ask for more with the expectation that you're probably going to get a little less.
Yes.
But 100%, I'm the same way. Always ask for even more. Now, within reason, right? Like, and it's kind of a read the room situation. And Elon and I were talking a little bit about this because it's a tough call until you kind of get that instinct. Like Elon and I have that instinct, right? So, and knowing the field, in Elon's case, Elon might be able to speak to jobs outside the museum field in
Mhm.
terms of like, there's probably a little bit of a difference of like not coming in and being like, okay, well, I'm going to ask for 50,000 over that. Like, well, that's just, yeah, unreasonable, right? And even that seems ridiculous, even though we definitely are worth that in this
Right.
field, and probably that would get the baseline up a little bit.
Mhm.
But I think there's within reasonable amounts. I think usually within like 10,000 is fair.
Mhm.
5 to 10,000 is usually what I tell people. Again, depending on the situation, the museum, or the organization.
Mhm.
Now, some places do. I just want to make this point, and then we can go back to the thing. But they will also have a hard limit. They might say in their job description that this is like it.
Yeah.
Like they're hard on that line. So that's when you're like, okay, that's when you would go down and see what other things you can negotiate. So that is a situation where I would not go in and just be like, well, I'm still going to ask for 5,000 over. If they are saying, you might disagree, but if they're hardline saying this is this, if they're not saying anything, that's fine. Then you can go and negotiate. But that's them saying we can't do more than that, and we want to let you know so that there's no question about it, which is fair.
Appreciate that transparency when people say that. Like, this is our budget, this is what we can offer. Then yeah, I would not negotiate. 80+% of what I see is a range.
Yes.
Commiserate on experience. You know,
I'm like, I think I get viscerally angry every time I see that.
yes. Yes. So if they provide a range, try and prove to them why you are at the highest part of that range. And then if they counter with something lower or like more in line with what we are actually hoping for, then you can also say, yeah, I'd be willing to accept this salary in addition to an extra remote day a week or a relocation bonus or guaranteed professional development funds. Like that's where you can counter if especially when you ask for the higher number and they come back more mid-range with what you were actually expecting, then you can use that for leverage to ask for the non-financial incentives.
Yes. No, I think that's important.
Mhm,
And if you haven't heard us enough, get things in writing. And even when you renegotiate and let's say
mhm,
they agree on something else, get the updated thing in writing. That is so important. So make sure that they do that and save a copy,
mm.
physical copy, digital copy for your.
Not to your work computer that you might have to give back. Yeah.
But I think that's all the big tactics, unless there's anything
Mhm.
else.
Yeah, and I think just, how to frame it. I'm really excited about this role. Thank you so much for the offer. Based on my experience, skills, salaries for this type of role in the area, I was hoping we could discuss the base salary. I would feel more comfortable with $75,000 as an example. If you're down with AI, ask AI how to phrase it. Respectful and assertive way. And make sure you give AI, if you're going to use it, the reasons for why you want the higher salary.
Yes. No, I think that's important. I
Mhm.
think I'm really glad that you put that, like, I'm excited for this role
Mhm.
because, again, I think it goes back to this idea that, like, you have to be, like, hard lines, very serious about this
Mhm.
versus, like, it's okay to express excitement, especially if you
Yes.
are genuinely excited about working there. Like, places want people that are excited to work there. So it's
Mhm.
okay to express that you are excited for the role, but also want to negotiate. I think
Yep.
it's important to have that balance.
Absolutely. And I think too in all of this, just remaining polite and respectful so that you can maintain good relationships. You don't want to start off coming in hot and aggressive and rude. So just being cool about it. Be cool.
And always and like me with the mindset stuff, right? Flipping that on around, right? So if you're someone looking to hire someone and
Hmm.
they come in hot, they're coming in not willing to budge, giving the ultimatums. That's
Hmm.
going to be a red flag to you
Uh-huh.
as like, well, what's it going to be like to work with this person if they're not willing to collaborate or come to some sort of mutual agreement from the start? Just something to think about, reversing it a little bit as you
Totally.
go about doing this.
I would say, generally speaking, our museum people are on the other end of that spectrum where they're too timid. So don't overcorrect too far, but I think generally speaking, we're trying to bolster people. But just in case.
I know. Y'all just need a confidence boost. So at the very least,
Yes.
negotiate for
Yes.
your confidence, but you're worth it.
You are. You are. So Allie, can you tell me about one of your client success stories and
Yes.
negotiations?
Yeah. So recently, I had a client. Actually, the funny story is I helped the job that this client was applying for. The person that was hiring was someone I helped get that job. And so now I'm helping this other person get a job at that organization, which is ironic. But anyway, so I also had some insider knowledge. I was like, I think we can try and negotiate
Uh-huh.
just knowing the organization, knowing the person in charge. And I basically went in and did the typical like, hey, let's ask for an increase because I think it was at also my client's like lower end. We did the tactics of, based on X, Y, and Z, our skills, years of experience,
Uh-huh.
expectations for what she wanted to make. And they were able to meet her not entirely, but they met her at 1K. We tried to go for fund increase after 6 months, but that's just not something the organization does. So it was like, yes, like typically we would consider that, but just like overall as an organization. But we'll give you this extra funds for professional development and then just let her know that we do merit based reviews yearly for that increase. So even just getting helpful information on like how the organization does handle salary
Mm,
increases was also something we found out. So that was helpful for her to know, like, okay, I would like to stay at this organization for a while, knowing that down the road, yes, I have to wait a little bit. I did get a little bit of a bonus, but that is helpful to know that at the end of the year there will be a salary increase.
that's a really great question to ask as well of how do review work? How do reviews work and how do salary increases work over your lifetime at the organization? That's a really good question.
Yeah. What about you, Elin? I'm sure you have quite a few to pick from.
Yeah, so I had a client, Mary, and she's actually going to be on a future podcast episode. And yeah, so exciting. Mary was able to negotiate a extra work from home day a week. So they were offering one work from home day a week and she was able to negotiate for two as long as there was not like big projects or big in-person things, right? Like, which she's like, yeah, that's totally fine. If you need me and I'll be in. But on slow weeks, yeah, I'll take the extra day. And then she was relocating for this job. And it is an organization that I'm very familiar with. And I was like, I don't think they offer relocation fees, but we should just ask. And then they gave her, I'm pretty sure it was $1,000 relocation fee or close to it. Yeah. Yeah. So paid, yeah, right. Paid for her moving truck and her boxes and all that stuff. So yeah, it does not hurt to ask because, yeah, it does not hurt to ask. You never know. You never know. And again, like, I think this is a really cool, some examples of how they were not all just like straight salary,
Or even
right?
straight no's, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah,
In general, people want to say yes, especially if they are excited about you as a candidate and they want to bring you on. They generally want to make it work. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
One final thing that I want to mention before we give you guys some takeaway tips is it is also okay to decline
Hmm.
as the candidate. So if they can't meet you and you're like, wow, this is like the baseline, or maybe even under what you're willing to take, you know,
Hmm.
I understand that we get desperate in this field and sometimes we don't have options, but just giving you that power of also being like, you know what? I don't think I can afford to live on this. They're
Hmm.
not willing to meet me with any of my things, you might have to decline. And I think also how a place handles the negotiation process will tell you a lot about the organization. So you might find out the negotiation process, wow, there's a lot of red flags. They're not willing to work with me
Hmm.
or they're not being thoughtful about this or whatever it is. So that also might be a way that you decline as well, just because you're like, you know what, I realize this might not be the best place for me.
It's very telling, right? If it's going to be like a tooth and nail situation.
So
Yeah.
just wanted to empower people with that as
Yes.
well, because I feel like sometimes during the job search process, we feel powerless. We feel like there's still power dynamics, but I always, when you can reclaim some of your power back, we try
Mhm.
to. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's talk about some takeaway tips, unless you have any final thoughts on negotiations.
No, no. Let's talk takeaways.
All right, we want to go back and forth, share a little bit. All right. So these are things that you can implement immediately when you are considering negotiations. So if you are in that process, listen to this episode, write this down. So, or even beforehand, like we mentioned, definitely number one, write down your ideal and minimum acceptable salary ranges. This is always good to know about yourself in general going through the process.
Yes. And don't apply for roles that fall significantly below your minimum acceptable. If it's on the cusp and they have room for negotiations, potentially they're not explicit about what the salary is, okay. But don't apply for a $30,000 a year job if you cannot afford that and you need 60.
Yes. Great point.
Yep. Yep. So then thinking about what benefits are important to you. List them in order from 1 to 5. This becomes part of your negotiation strategy. So, say the salary is acceptable. Maybe that's down at number 5. Maybe it's not the most important thing to you, but you need flexibility. You need hybrid work. You need commuter benefits. What are those priorities for you? And I think we often default to putting money at number 1, but it might not always be the number 1. So, think about what is actually important to you and list them out 1 to 5.
Perfect. And then finally, because we all need that confidence boost, practice saying your ask out loud with a friend in the mirror, even typing it out.
Mhm.
You can even type it out in the way that you want to say it. And dial back your language a bit, get some feedback on it, use AI, ChatGPT, whatever resource works for you to
Mhm.
make sure that you are being confident, not vague, not apologizing when you're doing your ask.
Yes. And two, like, you can read it. If you have to verbalize your negotiations, you can write it down and then read it. That is okay too.
No one's gonna know. It would help me. Oh my gosh, I need to write
Yeah.
things down. So
Yes.
totally would be something that I probably have and would do.
Yes. Whenever I have to deliver something or say something that I'm a little bit nervous about it, I always write it down and then just read from it. It just takes some of the fear out for me. So,
Well, hopefully, after listening to all of our tactics, all of our tips, all of our stories, you all feel just a little bit more confident, less scared about going forth and negotiating on your next job offer. We would love to hear too if you use some of our tips and you went forth and negotiated because that you should always do that. So number one, go forth and negotiate if you
Yes.
do, and we want to hear about it.
Yes. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, comment. Let us know.
To keep curating your career, one negotiation at a time.
Thanks for tuning in to Curate Your Career. We hope today's episode gave you some ideas, encouragement, or at least a little bit of sanity for your museum career journey.
If you love what you heard, the best way to support us is to subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with a fellow museum professional who might need it.
And don't forget, you can connect with us, send questions, or share your story at curateyourcareerpod@gmail.com or find us on Instagram at Curate Your Career Podcast. Don't forget to fill out our mailbag form and share your questions that might be featured on a future episode.
All right, now go take one small action toward the career you actually want. So don't just survive your museum job, curate it one step at a time.